All right, what's going on, everybody? It's me, Rich. Welcome back. This is another episode of Behind the Counter. Thank you for tuning in. BTC 2.0 welcome you. I'm going to do something a little different this week. We're going to do the interview right up top. But first, how about that Snyder Cut Justice League? Spoiler alert, I didn't watch it. I have no expectations for it. I'm going to probably watch it this weekend with my brother over the internet in some form or fashion. Why not? Listen, if you liked it, you liked it. If you don't, you don't. If you don't care, that's great too. You don't have to like everything, right? This week's guest, we have legendary creator Jimmy Palmiotti. Over 30 years in the business. He's doing a lot of awesome stuff, a lot of creator-owned stuff, a lot of stuff for the big two, a lot of independents, lots of projects on Kickstarter. We have a very fun conversation, and it was a pleasure to talk to him. Pretty cool guest. Check it out, guys. Hey guys, I'd like to welcome Jimmy Palmiotti to the show. Jimmy, how you doing today?
All right, man. How you doing?
I'm pretty good, man. You're in Florida now, right?
I am watching the poor America. America came down here for spring break, and they probably will never come back again because it's 2 hours just to drive to the beach, and then there's no parking, and it's overcrowded, and the hotels like tripled their rates, and it's just a mess.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's all of the United States came down here at once, and it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a New York guy. You're a New York guy.
Yeah.
Like every time when it was like real deep COVID, and I'd see people on the beach in Florida, I'd always be like, "Wow, it doesn't exist down there."
Well, you can be on the beach by yourself and, there's no COVID around. But right now, if you're down in Clearwater Beach, Miami, any of the beaches, you're going to get sick if somebody has it because there's no way to avoid it. People aren't wearing masks. Sorry, I'm adjusting my seat. People aren't wearing masks. And there's a certain generation that thinks, well, I don't care if I get it. And then there's a certain kind of political view where I'm not going to get it. I don't believe it exists, or I'm not going to get a shot. So we're dealing with a lot of crazy people, Oh
yeah. I got a buddy who is, he's not a COVID denier, but he's definitely going to bars that I'm like, I'm not going to come and join you, dude. He's like, come on out for a drink. No.
I'll see you after I get my 2 shots. I'll hang out with you.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'll come visit you in the hospital when that happens.
Right. Well, they won't even that won't even happen. So Jimmy, you've been in the industry, the comic book industry for 30 plus years, early 90s.
Yeah, early 90s. Yep.
Where do we begin? Like you went to high school in New York, right?
I did. I went to the High School of Art and Design in New York, and I actually took comic book illustration there, and I actually got some of my first work when I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
It was ghosting for other artists, so they were behind in their deadlines, and I would help ink the books. And I worked on like stuff like Invaders, and when I was in 12th grade, like Invaders and Howard the Duck magazine, inking over Gene Colan. I did a bunch of that stuff, and then I realized that all the comic book people I knew, the creators, were poor. And I was already poor. So I didn't want to, I said, I can't do this for a living. So I went into advertising and design. And I did very well in advertising with an agency I had and everything. And then it wasn't until I was in my 30s where I said, I'm going to try comics again, but I'm going to take what I learned in the advertising field and see if I can make some money doing it. And I got lucky. I got a break from a high school buddy, Mark Texera, who I went to high school with. Was drawing, penciling, and inking Ghost Rider and Punisher once a month. He was doing both books and needed help. So I would go up to Marvel and help him and eventually show my work around. And I've been working ever since.
Now, at this time in Marvel, was it still like that bullpen style where everybody was in the office working?
Yeah. Well, the artists weren't, right? But the bullpen were. So the bullpen guys were a bunch of artists that would like fix things, or they do fix lettering, or they would like a book would go out and changes were made. John Romita was there. John Romita Sr. was there, and he would like tweak some of the covers before they left. And so there was a minimal amount of artists there. It was mostly editors. And when I would go up there, I would work in the bullpen. I take a desk and I'd work after hours. So people would leave and then I'd work there late at night. Like Tex and I would work there late at night and get a Ghost Rider issue done and leave it in the office and sneak out in the morning. You know, it was like crazy times like that.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Did you grow up a comic book fan too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have two older brothers, and they had comics around the house. And then I started collecting when I was probably like 10 or 11. And it was before comic stores, right? So there was, there were bookstores that had comics in the back, like in boxes for a dime or 20 for a dollar kind of stuff. And there was one comic store. It was a bookstore comic store, but he was the guy that had Fantastic Four 1 through 110, and you can flip through it and pull out the books you want. So there was one real store, and it was called My Friend's Bookstore, and it was on Flatbush Avenue in Newkirk in Brooklyn.
Wow.
And and actually Paul Levitz used to work there when he was a kid. So I give you an idea. Wow. Paul's older than me, but he was working there when I would go. So I've been collecting comics ever since. I still collect comics. I don't, not so much the new ones. I will buy all the number ones to read them. Not Marvel and DC, but everybody else. And then if I like something, I buy it. But I also buy back issues. I collect I like to fill out my collections on some things, So I'm still doing that. I mean, now it's more expensive than ever. It used to be it was cheap. Now it's like, especially with COVID, everyone and their mother is buying everything. Like, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Before we started this interview, we were talking about a little bit about the aftermarket and how books are exploding right now. And I'm kind of in the same, I get new books every week, but also I like to fill in a lot of Silver Age stuff that especially Silver Age Marvel stuff, which I completely adore, And
it's stuff was it stuff you read as a kid, or was it before you were born? You're picking up stuff from before you were born?
I'm picking up stuff from before I was born, but It was something that I was always kind of into, and I'd rather have the actual copies in my hand than let's say the Marvel masterpieces.
Right. Sure. I get it. There's I just picked up a couple of books. I'll grab them right now.
Yeah, please. That's awesome.
I'm trying to fill out my collection on these, and it's probably the most expensive collection you could try to fill out.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Sensation comics. They're not all in good shape. It's a 3.5. This one's not too bad. But these are from 1944 and 46. They're a little tough to get, these old Wonder Womans. I'm sorry to be so reflecty, but...
No, that's cool.
And I pick up maybe one every couple of months. I'll save up. And then I start checking online and see who's got, and, eBay, I kind of go on there and, where it says make an offer, that's the guy. That's me. I kind of, whatever they're asking, I ask for $200 less, and then we bargain until we get to the middle.
Yeah.
I never pay what they're asking. Rarely it happens. But I don't buy a lot, because I don't really, comic people don't make that much money. Mm-hmm. So I'm very limited to what I buy.
Yeah, for sure. And so is the Sensation run your current obsession?
It is, but I don't think I'll ever get near issue 1 to 20.
Okay.
I've been filling out the 50s and the 60s, issue 50 to issue 70. And I'm short a couple. Mm-hmm. This one I bought has a rip on the cover, the corner is ripped.
Yeah.
I have all these books reprinted, so I can read them. They're in a book,
right? But
I wanted to get the originals, and and it's just so even with the rip on it, this thing's a couple of $100, So it's hard to get really good copies of these books too, because you think about they've been around 60, almost 70 years,
Yeah.
And they're paper. It's cheap paper. But once in a while you'll find one with a lot of good color on it. And, again, I'm a little bit of a comic geek. I do have the reprints. I do have, I collect original art. My God, I had to calm down with the original art part because it's too expensive now.
Yeah.
And then I collect certain artists. I'll buy alternate covers by certain artists because I'm just I got to have their stuff,
Yeah, no, I hear you 100%. You ever go to the other, you ever venture out into different stores in different cities? For example, whenever my wife go on vacation, she'll roll her eyes at me and I'll be like, can we please check out the 4 comic stores that are in this area?
I do. Yeah. And it's great because sometimes they never recognize me. A lot of times they don't. If I walk in with Amanda, Amanda and I walk in together, like 50% more, they'll notice us.
It'll click. Yeah.
Yeah. Like and and I try to just kind of scope around and look. I don't want to go, hey, I'm Jimmy Palmiotti, give me 10% off.
Yeah.
I don't really do that. But we did go to our first time we went to Mile High Comics, and
cool.
Amanda and I started, in Denver, and we started going through and we picking out a bunch of books, and we go to pay for them, and they smile at us, and they said, we'll give you those books if you sign a bunch of books for us. And I'm like, okay. So Amanda and I signed a big stack of Harleys and stuff for them, and they were mostly crap books we were taking. So it wasn't like we were taking anything great from them. We were taking these like really weird things we were finding and laughing at.
Yeah.
But that happens once in a while. Honestly, if I walk in a comic shop, I will sign all their books, whatever they need. I always do, because I figure the store can move the stuff. If they have stock of mine sitting around, I'd rather them sell it. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And plus, like, it's interesting too, because like you and Amanda are pretty much like responsible for like this modern iteration of like Harley.
Yeah, I mean, we took what Bruce and Paul did, and then we when they gave us the book, DC gave us the book, they said do whatever you want. So we kind of we thought if we're gonna have a comic book called Harley Quinn, we shouldn't have it in Gotham, because it's too easy to become the secondary Batman comic, character comic. Sort of like really pretty much everybody but us does with Harley, is they put all the Batman villains in.
Yeah.
And we said, we don't want to do that. Let's do something different. Let's get her away from the Joker, because he's kind of poison anyway. And so we took her out and put her in Brooklyn, and roller skating. We introduced the roller derby stuff, and Amanda and Chad started changing the costume every issue to fit whatever she was doing. And I think because at first nobody cared, we were able to do anything we wanted. And then it started outselling the JLA and started outselling other books. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, now we can't really control too much what they're doing because they're on a roll. So we had a really great run of us doing almost everything we wanted. We had a lot of Ivy and Harley pushback, because they didn't want some of the stuff we were doing in the stories. We had to change some pages along the way. And as Dan DiDio used to tell us, your job is to push the envelope. Our job is to tell you when you've gone too far. He goes, so don't write it. Don't write it thinking what is going to be approved or not. Write it the way you see it, and then we'll tell you if it's not. And it's a good policy, because we got away with a lot of stuff in that run that they can never do now.
Yeah, that was such a fun book. And I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like following you on Twitter and seeing the stuff you do, I feel like you're the guy who wants to make fun comic books, as opposed to like, like everything I do has to be like dark and deadly, Well,
I think there's a thinking that if it's fun, it doesn't count.
That's oddball thinking to me.
It is, because I had somebody telling me, I read this article and it's like, Harley and Ivy kiss for the first time. And I'm like, all right, they kissed like 30 times in my book. What are you talking about? And somebody said, well, your series was out of not the regular continuity. I'm like, no, ours was actually the continuity.
Right.
And I said, because we didn't do the crossovers with the other books, we didn't want the Harley to be like part of the big crossovers, because we just felt like it just thinned her out again. It just became about her coming in to a book where she says something, a wise guy thing, and then hits somebody with a mallet. And we didn't want it to be that. We wanted to build up who she was, and, her supporting characters and her life. And it's sort of like when somebody takes over Superman, and it's more about Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane. It's like, no, the name of the book is Superman.
Right.
So, I see stuff like that and I always laugh, because I'm like, okay, keep rewriting whatever. We can get another headline, I guess. Yeah. But it was in continuity. It was in our continuity. It's just that we weren't part of the, we were part of Rebirth,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was the book.
It was the book. So it's kind of funny when I see that stuff, but whatever. Comics. Here's the thing: when you leave a book, you don't want to look at it again.
Right.
When you spend that much, I remember when I worked on Daredevil with Joe Quesada and Kevin Smith. When I left the book, I didn't want to read Daredevil again. Like, because I felt like I did it, and that's what we had to say, and move on. And I think most creators are like that. Like, they're not going to read too much after they leave something, because it's only, I remember we did Power Girl for 12 issues, and we had so much fun doing that. And then, like, within the next 6 issues afterwards, they killed off some of our supporting cast. Like, and I'm like, I don't want to read that. Like, you know, but I do like fun. I don't think fun has to, it's not like we write comic book funny books. We write the serious stories, but I think there's a certain, Amanda and I have a certain point of view. When something is silly in the book, we'll point it out a little bit, or we'll take things a little too far. But that's kind of the charm of the character too. It's always in the character's voice, you know?
Right.
Like Harley, there were times when it was deadly serious, or we had another agenda, and then it would be funny, and then it would be sad, because we'd see that she's trying to mask things with the comedy, and she's very upset and all that stuff. But I still think for the reader, it should be fun. And I think there's a lot of people that do dark comics much better than I do. So more power to them. But fun is a little harder. Like, comedy is a little tougher to do. And I think Amanda and I kind of make each other laugh. We try to outdo each other, and that comes across in the books, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And especially like on the printed page, it's even harder to do comedy, as opposed to, like, you know, you could tell somebody a joke, but once it's on paper, you know, like to get the context of the joke is a different thing.
Yeah. I mean, there is nothing worse than somebody who's not funny writing funny in a comic.
Right.
It lands like a brick, you know?
No, for sure. So, and I kind of want to go back a little bit. And you said, you know, like, after you're done with a book, you kind of don't want to see it. You don't want to know what's going on anymore.
Right.
Is that because you poured all yourself into it, and a little bit of, you already know how the sausage is made kind of thing?
When Amanda and I, we work on books, we put every ounce of our energy into every book. Like, there was, for a year and a half or 2 years, we did a bi-monthly. It was coming out twice a month with the annuals. We had no life. We worked on everything. And again, when they hire us, they also get an editor, because we look at the color, we look at the balloon placement. Amanda rewrites the dialogue to match the art before it's lettered. And then we control who's doing the covers, and so we're like, you know, we're fussing over everything. There's a reason those 3 Harley omnibuses have a certain steady look to them. They're not random. They're not all over the place. They actually, there's a look. So we kill ourselves on it. So it's kind of hard to read afterwards, because usually the person coming in after, just like we did, starts reinventing stuff so they can make it their own. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The audience is interesting, because the audience will tell you they don't like it, or they want it back to whatever. And, you know, it takes a while. So here's what happens. So it's like Spider-Man. It's like, it'll be Harley. There'll be runs for a long time, but it'll be certain creators that put a mark on a certain piece of a run. And then there's the other people who work on it until the next person puts a mark on it. We can look at Daredevil and say Frank Miller, and put a mark on it. Mazzucchelli put a mark on it. Marvel Knights put a mark on it. You know, so there's like, in the lifespan of a series, there's just tons of issues, but only certain groups of creators will put a mark on it. And that's usually what you see, the trades that you see forever and ever. Those are the things that everybody has. Everyone has a Watchmen. Everyone probably has, I'm looking over there, the new X-Men with Grant Morrison and Frank Riley.
Dark Knight Returns, for sure.
Right, Conan with Barry Smith, I'm looking at my wall. X-Men with Claremont and John Byrne. You know, I have the Marvel Knights one over there. So it's like certain creators make a mark on it, but it's random, and you just have, it's luck. Because if you look at the comic wall, the new comic wall out this week, there's only a couple of books that are going to be really standouts. Right,
for sure.
For the most part, it's just the next group taking on. And I think it has everything to do with the unique voice the artists bring to it, whether they're writers or artists or illustrators. They have their unique voice on certain things stands out. Frank Miller's has a unique voice. Anything Frank doing Batman Year One, Frank doing Sin City, Frank doing Daredevil, it's like, yeah, man, that's like, it's all Frank, you know? So we don't have a lot of superstars. I always just say, like, remember the Wizard top 10 writers and artists list?
Oh yeah.
I honestly think if they were back and did it now, it wouldn't be that different. There would be, you know, the Donny Cates and the new guys, but a lot of the same guys would be the hot guys. Jim Lee'd still be on it. Todd McFarlane would still be on it, you know. So it's really interesting just how this field works.
It's fascinating too, especially I think, you know, working for like your two major, let's say Marvel and DC, for example, your two major publishers. I find it fascinating that you have to play in a sandbox that somebody else left for you, you know? I kind of want to, you know, like, that being said, talk to me about Paper Films and the Kickstarter projects that you have going on, because you know, like, I did some research on Paper Films and it seems pretty fantastic. So I want to know more, and I'm sure the people watching this want to know more too.
So Paper Films is a company, you know, Man and I own, and Justin Gray works with, and Patrick Wedge works with, and we have a group of guys, Paul Mounts, people that we always use, but it's a small group of us, and we self-publish books. So we don't have, like, we don't do the Diamond route. We don't do the comic book store route. We've done 17 Kickstarters. The last recent ones are Top Kill, which I've got copies of right here. I just brought 2 copies. Cool. That's Amanda Connor did the special cover. There's a little nudity here, but it's, you know, grown-ups. And it's an Adam Hughes cover. And we do the Kickstarters, and they appeal to people who like what we're selling, the concept. People who enjoy the artists, this one happens to be mature audiences, and you know, we just do the books we want to own, we create. The problem with working for DC and Marvel, and by the way, Amanda and I are working a lot less with them anymore. We're almost done with the major companies, is we work for years and years and years, and all these great characters, and, you know, paying bills one page at a time. But they go on and do, like, gigantic success. You know, Harley Quinn is, like, you know, Suicide Squad movie coming out, you know, she had her own movie, the toys, games, all this stuff. We don't really benefit that much.
Right.
They give us a bonus once in a while, but it's minimal, and it's not really anything. And we see the IP for these characters that we worked and built up. And not, you know, not just Harley. I mean, it's everything we work on, because we didn't create Harley, but we look at this stuff and realize, well, a lot of people are getting rich except for us. Right. We're getting like we're becoming dollar heirs or $100 heirs, or you know, so we decided with Paper Films we create our own characters, our own stories, our own IP, you know, intellectual property. So we can own it and sell it and make a little bit of money, because honestly, the more comfortable we are where we're not worrying about money, our work has a little more fun to it. You know, there's a little, if we're stressing about money, it's hard to make good comics because you're worrying about everything. So we do the Kickstarters because as we were working on other books, we were always doing books on the side. So the latest one that's up now, and it'll be up for 2 more weeks, is Sex and Violence, which is it's volume 3. So it's like it's the 3rd book we've done, and it's a bunch of short stories done by different people. It's an anthology, you know, around the subjects of sex and violence. And we actually got a Frank Frazetta cover, a beautiful drawing by Frank Frazetta. We got permission to use that's never been seen. So Frank did this drawing; it's never been printed anywhere. And then we get a man like Joe Linsner did a beautiful cover, and it's exclusive. So I was showing you like the Adam Hughes cover, right? It's limited to the Kickstarter, just like the Joe Linsner one, just like the Amanda one. And so for the collectors, the Kickstarter is a great thing, right? Because right now, we were just talking about this before, like the Adam Hughes cover one, the resale on it, it just came out. We just shipped them out, and they're on eBay from like $250 to $500 each. All they paid was $30 for the book when it came out, 30 or $40. So the collectors love the Kickstarters. The readers love it if they like adult stuff. And again, we try to put a bunch of artists on the books that people love doing, and you get to see these comic artists do different things, more mature stories. A lot of time it's whatever they want. You know, I'm pretty much like, you know, send me a story, let me look at it. Okay, cool. And who do you want to draw it, or do you want to draw it yourself? And that's how the Sex and Violence volumes. This is our 3rd one. And even if people don't want the physical books, we offer a digital book for $6. So you can back our Kickstarter for $6 and you get the book. Or for $15, you would get all 3 64-page volumes for $15, sorry. And that's our most popular pledge. We've already had 383 people back the $15 digital. So I'm happy about that because I can deliver it all over the world with one button.
Right.
But the basis of Paper Films was, hey, this is the stuff we're doing. And if you like our work in Harley, and if you like our work in Power Girl or Jonah Hex, check out what we do and nobody's telling us what to do. And, you know, we have a website, paperfilms.com, where we sell Amanda's art. We sell a bunch of artwork, prints, books, everything. That's our nickel and dime business we hope people go to. And every sale, you know, every book, we give a certificate of authenticity for signatures. Since I'm a collector, everything goes out in a very collector's feeling to it.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So, but that's what it is. So basically, Paper Films, we started it in 2001. We're not a big company. We're just a couple of people making comics and having fun. And that's always been our theme.
Now, so you said 17 successful Kickstarter projects, right?
Yes.
How do you find, let's say, you can answer this however you want, but how do you find the Kickstarter compared to pitching and working with another company? Because, you know, getting off the ground with Kickstarter could be difficult, but you have the experience of 17 funded projects now.
So initially Kickstarter was a ton of work because every Kickstarter we'd have to ship out 1,000 packages. And me and my buddy Patrick and Amanda would sit there in a room and we'd boxing things up and putting things in bags. And we still do that. But the difference is we own it 100%. Okay. So when I pitch for a company, I'm usually pitching according to their rules. So they're going to tell me, well, we own half, or we control the media rights, or we own most of it, which is DC, and then we own all of it, which is Marvel. Or you work for Image, where it's a partnership, and then they take a fee for handling the book. Every company's different. Not every book I do fits Paper Films, and not every book I do fits Image or Marvel or DC. So I don't sit there and create properties for the places. What I do is I get ideas, write out my ideas, and then figure out where they would sit best. That's why, we did I did a series for Boom called The Con Job, because I thought it works well with Boom, and that's the right publisher. I have books with Image, like the Pro. That's the best place to sell the Pro is Image. Right. So there's a lot of that. We have to figure out where it is. The next, right now with the Sex and Violence, that's us publishing it, and then the next thing we're going to do is an art book for Amanda. And that's the best thing for us, is for us to publish that, because then Amanda can sign it. Right. We can do signed editions. We can do sketch editions. We can do print editions. So it comes down to what you're doing and who would be the best place for it. And, again, it's not like I know everything. Everything's a guessing game. At the end of the day, the fans, the people look at the Kickstarter and say, oh, I like this or I don't like this. So at the end of the day, we just pitch it. Right. But as long as the fans have an eye on it, they'll fund fun projects. I think Kickstarter has become almost like its own quote unquote independent publisher at this point. I hope so. I mean, here's the thing with me is it's 17 Kickstarters in, no complaints. Everybody gets their books. They get them on time. I deliver the digital the day the checks clear, the money clears. And then the book's usually within a month. I answer every inquiry onto my Kickstarter. Everyone's talking to me. I pack half the books. You'll know the books I pack because I put my initials on the package somewhere. Those are the ones I pack. I can't pack them all, but and then I see a lot of the same names. So it's great to see people I know and say, oh my God, they supported my past one, and that guy's terrific. Or I'll go on Twitter and we'll talk about it. And, the people are great. They post the books they get. They talk about them. When I'm at cons, they come and they say, hey, I backed your last Kickstarter. And I'm always like, fantastic. Always up for a conversation. But we're a grassroots, we're just a couple of people having a good time. So I think that's what comic books should be. Do you miss the Comic-Con circuit? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do because... Have you ever been to a con where we've been at it, where Amanda and I have been?
New York Con, I'm pretty much married to.
Okay, that's like a crazy show.
Yeah.
So most of the cons Amanda and I do, we're the first people there and the last people out, because we make sure everybody online gets to see us, and we have a conversation with everybody. And there's Amanda.
Hello.
Oh, you gotta run. You gotta run to the art store.
Yeah.
Okay. I love you.
Hi.
How you doing, Amanda? Nice to meet you.
She's short on art supplies. That's a crime.
Didn't have that.
All right. I'll see you in a little bit.
See you later.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Hey, no worries.
But anyway,
I'm keeping that in, by the way.
Yeah, it's great. So we make sure we get to talk with everybody at the show, and people interact and they tell us what they like or don't like. And, I miss that about the interaction with the fans, because they're very vocal about what they like, and we learn a lot from them. And I feel like I get to hang out with people.
Yeah.
Like, even though we're at the table, people will tell you when they come up, we chat, we talk about things, and it's really nice feeling, because like, especially this year, we feel like we're in our own bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we do stuff and I think people like it. They say online they like it, but you don't have these big conversations at cons. The other thing is I miss my pro friends, because we go out at night and have dinner and we compare notes.
Right.
And, we all talk about our page rates and how the companies are screwing us. So they got to understand, we compare page rates. We compare contracts. We talk about who's screwing us. We gossip, right? And I miss all that, because we don't do it online, because we don't trust anything. Yeah. We don't trust Facebook. We don't trust Twitter. Nobody talks business online, because everything's been shown to be flawed. So we're very careful these days.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, again, it's, we're talking about putting things into context. If, like, somebody puts a tweet out and somebody reads it out of context, it turns into this whole pylon mentality. Oh, which is absurd,
This year has been the year of, I tweet something, and it's the headline of the story on some website.
Very bizarre. Yeah.
So I have a little sign over there that says, only tweet where you're comfortable being a headline of a story. I know it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think I said, if DC would ever license Power Girl, Amanda and I would be first one online to, buy the rights to do Power Girl. And all of a sudden it was a full story. DC creators want to buy Power Girl. And I'm just like, what? I'm not buying Power Girl. I'm just saying, if they're going to license it one day, we'll be the first one online to get Power Girl, because we want to do some more Power Girl books.
Right. And then, unfortunately now, in the times we live in, you digitally specifically, you have to kind of over explain yourself.
It's ridiculous, because it's really hard to be a wise ass on the internet. If somebody takes what you say and makes you into like a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll see on my tweet, it'll just be like, gah, because I'm just like, I don't know how to answer this. So I just go, gah. Yeah. I every once in a while, someone will tag me on a really nasty tweet, like about me. Like, they'll say something about me and they'll tag me because they want me to see it, right? And I always think, I sit there and I look at it and I think, what do they really want? Like, what do they want me to know that they think this about me? And they want me to acknowledge it, right? They want me to answer it. Well, I never answer it, by the way.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, there's not really much integrity in what they're writing anyway, so I can't get mad about it. Sometimes I laugh at it, but I mostly ignore it, because that's like giving them what they want, right? You're answering, Kevin Smith had a whole part of his film about that, but it's just funny, because I'm always willing to have a conversation with people that disagree with me. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But when they do the name call and stuff, I'm like, you just lost your conversation. You just lost the right to have a conversation with me. Because when you start calling me, well, some guy the other day is like, well, I think your opinion's stupid. And I'm like, that's not a conversation. That's like,
right.
I disagree with your opinion, because my experience tells me that this is this. And I'm like, I can talk all day to that person. And by the end of it, I can say, you know what, we agree to disagree, but I might have to look at that movie again. Who the hell knows, Right. And they just say this, you're stupid. And I'm like, all right, I'm stupid. But you're the one saying it, so you look like a moron to me. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing I have here is it says slow down. Oh, it says slow the F down. Amanda made that for me. It's a turtle. But it's like the internet makes you want to react.
Yes.
But the enemy of the internet is to slow down and have integrity and then react. And that's the enemy of the internet because that's logical brain.
Right. Like being rational is the enemy of the internet, pretty much.
My favorite things are when somebody says, everyone's talking about Game of Thrones. One guy's like really proud. I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones and I never will. And I'm like, okay. It's like that commercial about the older people. Like, hey, I got up early this morning. No one cares. It's like, I understand everybody wants some attention, but you got to start out with something more interesting than what you didn't watch.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's the digital landscape is bizarre. Like I have one of my friend's ex-boyfriends was so adamant, and he had kids too, and he was like, I will never put on a Marvel movie in my house. It's only DC movies. And I'm like, wow. They're good movies, man. Like doesn't, they're fun movies. You're missing out on fun movies.
No, when somebody tells me you're going to love Wonder Woman 84 or something. And then I watched it and I said, I didn't, but I'm glad you did.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't cost me anything that you enjoyed it. I don't understand. No, you have to believe what I say is right. And, that's a losing conversation. I've been in a relationship long enough to understand when I'm talking, when no matter what I'm saying is not going to be heard because it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm not that tone deaf to my own stupidity. I can tell when I'm being an idiot and I'm saying something. But I think the internet, the Twitter for me makes me fine tune my conversations and how I am with people because I am very political. I do have my political views. I am clear about it, but I don't attack people for theirs.
Right.
If somebody says to me, a guy said to me, I know, he's a Trump guy. And he's like, look, I love your comics and I love Trump and you don't, I get it, but I still love your comics. And I'm like, great, man. I still love you. I said, it's just that I don't agree with what you believe in, but that's politics. I have a knife in my hand. I don't know what that means. This is my letter opener.
You're getting riled up.
Listen to me. You want to listen to what I do. So I have props all over my room. I want you to know I have a collection of hats because I do so many interviews. Sometimes I throw on a cowboy hat or a skipper hat.
Yeah.
Because I'm bored with myself, like looking at myself. I'm like, that's why I'm in these beautiful woods here with the Aurora Borealis, trying to make my life more interesting.
The beautiful Aurora. And I got the Sasquatch hat today, so that's nice.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Believe.
So let's do a couple more questions and then I'm going to let you go. I'm sure you got a busy afternoon. So how did you make the transition from inker to writer? If memory serves me correctly, I remember I was working at a comic store in the early 2000s and you and Justin Gray had just put out Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
Which I love that series.
Thank you.
And I want to say, like, I think that was one of the first times I saw your name as the writer for a book.
Yeah, so I mean, I wrote a lot of the event comics with Ash and Painkiller Jane and stuff like that.
Right. Okay.
But that's like, people look at that. That's creator owned, blah blah blah. So for mainstream, I was inking, maybe 10 years, and I was, and when I started doing Marvel Knights, I was like, I can write better than a lot of these guys. I don't know what's going on here, and I got my first break with a guy, Mike Martz, great guy. He said, you want to write a bunch of Deadpool? So I wrote like Deadpool 55 to 65. I wrote like almost a year's worth of Deadpool. That was my first writing gigs, I wrote the first Punisher Deadpool issues, those issues, and Deadpool 50. I came up with Kid Deadpool, and in my, and I was like, hey, I think I could do this. And, I got some work at DC writing Superboy. They said it's going to get canceled. And they said, would you want to do the last couple of issues? And I'm like, I will take any writing work you give me. But I don't really know much about Superboy except that Superman when he was young. And they're like, no, this is a different super. Like, I actually got Dan DiDio to help me on that one, and Dan DiDio was my next door neighbor. He was not in comics. He was not in comics. He just liked comics. But anyway, I started getting with the inking where I was the inker that could draw. Mm-hmm. So they started giving me not the better artists. They gave me the guys that needed work or needed extra attention, or I needed things fixed. So I found towards the end, I found myself inking stuff and erasing and correcting. And I was like, it's such shitty pay. What am I doing? And I said, you know what? I want to start writing more. So I started writing more, and then I had to say, okay, the only way I'm going to make this transition is if I drop the inking. And that's what I did. I said, no more inking, just writing. Let me see if I can get work. And, DC gave me Justin and I were working together. So we did 21 Down. We did a Jonah Hex, Power Girl. We started, I started Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters, and then Marvel. I was writing Claws with Joe Linsner and Misty Knight and Colleen Wing, Daughter of Dragon, always the weird books.
Yeah.
But I preferred those books. I preferred the characters that were a little quirky and didn't have too much history. I can go in and write it without saying, oh, wait, no, they did that in issue 275. Jonah Hex was easy, right? Straightforward Western. I could write a Western. Guy from Brooklyn can write about a bad guy, a good guy, bad guy. And even Power Girl, I looked at Power Girl, Justin, I looked at Power Girl and said, great looking character, killer body on her. It's a body type. It's a big girl, in every way. Let's write a comic that's not about her body. Let's write a comic on who she is, who this girl, who Kara is, what does she want in the world? And that's always the two things I do with every book is what do they want and what do they fear? And if I can find out what they want and what they fear, I can generally write that character for a long time, and so it just, so I got lucky with the writing. I'm a persistent son of a bitch too. I look at things that are challenging. I got to be honest with you. I've had stuff offered to me that was it'll make me money, but I don't have anything to say. I got offered Doctor Strange, and I was like, I don't really have anything to say about Doctor Strange. Bibbly boo, and everything fixed. So there's certain characters I stay away from, and I also gravitated towards writing female characters, and I think because my wife is such a strong woman, and my mom was, I've always been surrounded by very strong women, and I think that's why I find them easy to write. I'm not one of the guys that women go, oh, get him off the book. He's going to ruin this character.
Right.
But now that I'm working with Amanda, it's all of a sudden it's extra cool. Harley worked because Amanda and it had so much. Harley is so much of me and Amanda in that character.
Yeah.
Same thing with Power Girl. There's a lot of what we think and what we believe in these characters. So they the tone of them sound consistent.
Right. As opposed to, it not just not just word bubbles with, I don't want to say nonsense, but you know what I'm just throwing
out some jokes and stuff. I mean, even Jonah Hex, Jonah Hex, even though I'm a Brooklyn boy and Justin was moved over the country a lot more than me. But when we started writing Jonah Hex, I went out to a ranch and learned a horseback ride. And I said, if I'm going to talk about this stuff, I should be able to do it. And that would have been a video in itself.
How was that experience?
It was great. I mean, here's what I learned. I fear horses because they will kill you.
Yeah.
Amanda is a natural animal. Amanda jumped on the back of a horse, got on a horse and rode up a mountain. I was like, son of a bitch. I've been training on this ranch and everything. And she was a natural. The guy that ran the ranch was just like, that girl's a natural. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, I'm a guy from Brooklyn on a horse that looks at a horse as a gigantic piece of meat that can kill you.
Yeah.
It has 4 hooves and big teeth. And so
I hear you, man.
Respect for the horses. That's
I'm in the same boat you are. A couple of years ago, I was walking and I was wearing a band t-shirt, and a cop on horseback stopped. He stopped me to compliment my shirt. He started a conversation with me. And I gotta say, like, I was terrified because this was like maybe, I grew up in Queens. I'm a Queens guy.
Right.
This was maybe the first time a horse that big was this close to my face, and I was just like, sure, man, like whatever you gotta say, like, please don't eat me.
and they're really sweet, part of learning how to ride a horse is you have to groom the horse.
Okay.
So you groom it before, you have to do it afterwards, and you have to clean it, the shoe horns out. And then what I used to do is bring apples and little candies. So when my horse was done with me, I would give it an apple, and I'd give it some candy, little candies like peppermint candies. And then the horse, would start leaning on, like, I like this guy, but I had to buy my favor with that horse. I was not going to, earn it like Amanda did, where the horse just senses.
Right.
The horse sensed a person at peace with the earth. Did not sense that with me. The horse sensed a guy from Brooklyn who thinks this horse is going to kill him. That's what the horse got out of me, So
the anxiety of a New Yorker surrounded by large animals.
Absolutely. If it's not a rat or a dog or a cat, I don't know what to do with it.
Exactly.
And it's funny because I moved down to Florida, and like just yesterday we had a rat snake. It was like 6-foot rat snake, pretty big guy. And he came down the tree and was hanging out by us. Now it's funny because Brooklyn boy moves to Florida. There are so many wild animals in my yard. It is insane. I mean, we're talking snakes, hawks, owls. I've had run-ins with all of them, bees' nests, everything. And none of it bothers me, which is really interesting. It's just the horse is giant.
Oh, yeah. And you always hear horror stories about horses. You ever get any gators in your backyard?
No, there's one down the street, but he's okay. I mean, the one down the street, I just have to, German tourists come here.
Okay.
And for some reason, they have to go right up to the alligator to take a picture. And I keep telling, I'm like, you want to back up. It doesn't want to eat you, but it doesn't understand what a camera is and a picture is. Right. So, and the other thing about alligators is you can't have young children around them, because an alligator so a young child does not walk with confidence, right? They look like wounded animals the way they walk. And an alligator instinctively wants to attack anything that looks wounded. So little kids around alligators, not good.
Is the alligator down the block, like out in the open, or is he like attached to, is somebody have it? Is it?
No, it's so I have a lake at the end of my street, and the name of the lake is Alligator Lake. And it's a nature preserve.
So cool.
It's fenced in, but they don't come out because they that's where they live, right? So you can go in it. I climbed the fence and walked in it, but if you make noise, they kind of scatter. They're not like they want to eat you. They don't want to eat you. They're minding their own business. But if you step on them, they will snap at you. And if you swing your foot around them, then it looks like something they want to get, But it's common sense stuff, right? Don't put yourself in the path of it. But they do like the sun. They do like to lay out in the sun. So if you see it laying out in the sun, don't bother it. Just walk around it, and they'll never bother you. It's when you do stupid shit, that's when they get you.
Yeah, that goes for everything, right?
Yeah.
Jimmy, I got one more question, and then I'm going to let you go. All right. What is your favorite sandwich of all time?
Oh, I'm going to sound such like an Italian. I do love two sandwich. I do love chicken Parmesan Hero or a meatball Hero.
Yeah.
Like those two with the perfect bread and really good meatballs or really good chicken cutlet are my favorite. Like you could offer me one now and I'd probably wash a car, Those are my two favorites. How about yourself?
Homemade. My honestly, like, I think the most favorite sandwich I had in recent memory was at this pop-up food court in Brooklyn called Smorgasburg. And the sandwich was called the Sando Calrissian, and it was a buttermilk chicken sandwich with pickles, onions, and like mayonnaise on top, and it was
it's like a Popeyes chicken, almost like a Popeyes sandwich, right?
Yeah, it was
that's great. Yeah, that's great. I mean, but like a chicken parm, like I said, if it's done really well, like, and it has to be like the chicken you ate, like super tender.
Oh yeah.
I like things lightly fried. I don't like it, but yeah, that's my favorite.
From anywhere in particular, or homemade?
Well, in Brooklyn there was a couple of places, but honestly, I don't have a place down here. There's a place down here that does in Florida. I found a place that does Detroit style pizza.
Oh, cool.
That's insane. Like,
yeah,
it's some of the best pizza I ever had. And saying that, a Brooklyn boy saying that about some place in Florida is a criminal. But this place makes this one pie, and that everyone I bring and they eat it, they go, "Oh, I think I want to buy another one just to kind of take home." And it's one of those things with tons of burnt cheese around it, and
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
People knock. I'm in the same boat as you are. People knock Florida pizza. I've been to Florida a ton of times. You know what? I've never had a bad pizza experience.
Well, because you have a billion New Yorkers down here.
That's probably it. Yeah.
It literally is the 6th borough of New York, Florida. There is like the edges of Florida, the coasts are all New Yorkers. The people in the middle are all the Floridians. It's the and it's so of course you're going to get stuff down here. And I mean, look, where I am, you can get the best Cuban sandwiches. As a matter of fact, we were in Cuba and we asked them where to get the best Cuban sandwiches, and they said Tampa.
Wow.
So we thought that was hysterical. There was a pocket universe window of being able to go to Cuba. So Amanda and I took her parents and we went down there.
That's really cool.
And and talk about, that's a whole nother podcast. We could talk about Cuba, how cool that is.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So thanks for doing this. I mean, and I appreciate anybody who wants to reach out for the Kickstarter for Sex and Violence. I would appreciate it. Even give it a look. Retweet it.
Where can everybody find you on your website, social media platforms?
Okay,
and
so website, you can find me at paperfilms.com. When you go onto the site, a pop-up will pop up, and we do a mailer. So join the mailer, because we give away like coupons and books. We only hit you with the mail like once or twice a month, so it's not that bad. But it tells you where Amanda and I are going to be. Sometimes in the mailer, Amanda will do some sketches, and we'll just offer them just to the people from the mailer. Stuff like that. You can find me at Jay Palmiotti on Twitter, and the only other place is on Instagram. It's Jimmy Palmiotti, so pretty easy to find me. And you're on Twitter and say hi and say you listen to this interview, I will follow you.
Awesome.
Okay?
Jimmy.
So you say, hey, listen to this interview today, and I will follow you. We will follow each other to the ends of time.
Jimmy, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. It was a lot of fun, man. I hope you had fun.
I always do. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Cool, man. Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks. All right. How about that, huh? Jimmy is one of those guys that I've always wanted to talk to. I can't thank him enough for coming on the show. And, like he said, if you watch this and let him know on Twitter, he'll give you a follow back. And I'm pretty confident that Jimmy Palmiotti is a man of his word. He seems like a very stand-up and very cool guy. Really cool talking to him. That was great. So this week, like I said, we reversed it. Interview at the top, my stuff at the end. What am I going to talk about? Some of my picks for the week. Comic books. That's what this show is about. I love comic books. You love comic books. Clearly, the viewership is going up for this show, and we'll be through the roof at some point once we get those audio files out there, that RSS feed. You're going to end up seeing this on gfqnetwork.com. It's my fault for not managing the files properly in terms of getting them to where they need to go. But rest assured, everything that I've recorded so far will be there very shortly. And you'll be able to subscribe on iTunes. But if you're watching this, subscribe on YouTube at BTCRichX. Follow me at Twitter at BTCRich. That is BTC for Behind the Counter. And this is Behind the Counter 2.0. So on we go. Thor number 13, pretty fantastic this week. Donny Cates, Nick Klein, and Matt Wilson deliver on the ongoing Prey storyline, which is about the construct of Donald Blake, who was trapped in a world of Odin's design. For the Thor fans out there, Donald Blake was a creation of Odin, so that when Thor was tethered to the human realm, Donald Blake, who is Thor, would smash his cane on the ground, turn into Thor. Donald Blake would end up in this crazy world that Odin created. The character of Donald Blake figures out, after being stuck there for many years, that it is a fake world. He goes crazy. He starts murdering everything, and now he's in the real world while Thor is trapped in the created world with Donald Blake. We also see a withered and depowered Odin make a pretty epic appearance in this comic too. I'm really excited. The Donny Cates Thor stuff is really good. Man, it really adds to the canon of Thor. Kirby, Simonson, Jason Aaron, Donny Cates, definitely up there. We have Infinite Frontiers, Justice League 59, and keep in mind, these are the books that I've read that I've really liked this week. It's not the be-all, end-all of comic book reviews. I'm sure everybody's got a different opinion, but these are mine, and you're watching this, so thank you. Justice League 59 this week from Brian Bendis and Ram V, and it's a fresh start to the Justice League story. There are two stories in this book. Your Justice League proper, which features Black Adam, or I really do think they're going with the Shazam thing. Who knows? It's gonna take a while to get used to the name Shazam because it doesn't really roll off the tongue. And if the case is in, let's say, a future movie, you're gonna have Shazam and Shazam. Very confusing. Anyway, Black Adam is featured in the book along with a new interdimensional threat. It's a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of Bendis and DC, specifically because I always felt like, you know what? He's run his course in Marvel. He's done everything he could do with all the characters that he's written in Marvel. And he had such a long tenure in Marvel. His jump to DC really, I think, reignited his comic book writing vision. He's one of the best of all time. And I think this book is quote unquote classic Bendis. A lot of dialogue, a lot of snappy banter. And it kept me enthralled enough that I want to see where it goes. It's a pretty cool book. Radiant Black #2 came out this week, also from Kyle Higgins and Marcelo Costa with Becca Carey. Strong #1. Image does a great job of putting out them #1s. Other companies too, man. Other companies are starting to pick up on that Image vibe. Aftershock, Behemoth, AWA, like all these different companies, man. So Radiant Black #2 came out. Radiant Black #1 is about this kind of down on his luck writer who had to move back home in his mid to late 30s. And, you know, he's kind of struggling to make something of his life. You know, he had a few too many misses, has to come back home. And he encounters like an orb that gives him these insane powers. And in this issue, we explore that there is a counter person of the orb who is using the powers to like rob banks and be a criminal. Very good exploration of this. I really want to see where this goes. Another great book that I really love is the new Iron Man series by Chris Cantwell and Cafu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Iron Man versus Korvac. This series is very visually entertaining. It's written extremely well. For me, it so far would translate into like an Amazon Prime series. You know, I'm a big fan of The Expanse, and there are those outer space vibes, that science fiction vibe in this comic. Cantwell does a really good job of writing a very unique Tony Stark voice that is not like rehashed Iron Man. I feel like a lot of the times in the last 15 years, maybe less than 15 years, Iron Man is written in that Robert Downey Jr. voice, which is fine, but it kind of becomes old hat after a while. You know, there's nothing wrong with it, but if you want to add freshness to a character that's been around since the 60s, you gotta jingle the bells a little bit, so to speak. I just made that up. So I highly suggest the Iron Man series that's out now. It's up to issue 7. Korvac has this crazy plan to create peace in the universe, and Iron Man is fighting him basically with a broken neck, and his suit is keeping him together. Another cool and fun book, Ultra Mega #1, came out from Image this week. Big, thick book, big bad boy of a book, from James Herron and Dave Stewart. I believe this is James Herron's, the artist's, first written work. Really fun book. If you like big monsters, big fight scenes, a lot of blood and guts and gore, and a lot of very late 80s, mid 80s, 90s anime style, manga style violence, then this is the book for you. It follows this character, Ultra Mega, who's a kaiju fighter. Kaijus are the Japanese word for like big monster. And, he's like a superhero. And he's a man, but whenever he's around somebody infected with like this kaiju virus, let's say, he turns into like this big building-sized hero, and so does the person that is infected with this virus. So a lot of monster fighting fun. I think you guys will dig it. My book of the week, to be quite honest, is Nightwing. I have not picked up a Nightwing book in forever, but since the Infinite Frontier is coming hot off the heels of DC's Future State, all these books have a new jumping on point, and I'm glad I picked it up. I am not disappointed. I'm going to end up picking up all the DC books going forward just to see what the deal is now, because creative teams got shuffled, stories got shuffled, everything is kind of set in this Infinite Frontier style where it's a good jumping on point. You don't really have to know much of what happened. You don't really have to know what happened in Future State, but you have to know that there's continuity and there's things in the air. Taylor, Redondo, Lucas knocked it out of the park with this book. Tom Taylor writes a very heartwarming Nightwing. I gotta say, it starts out with Dick Grayson as a kid protecting somebody from bullies, kind of growing up and doing the same thing as Nightwing. You have your Barbara Gordon there. You have your nods to his family being killed by mob boss Tony Zuko. You have the story set in Bloodhaven, which was Nightwing's roost, so to speak, still going against Blockbuster. It's a very, very basic, down-to-earth story, and it does touch on some of the Batman continuity from the last couple of years, namely Bruce Wayne losing his fortune and the death of Alfred. Now, I did not think this book was going to choke me up, but it's such a sweet and pure story with a lot of the stuff that you kind of love from Nightwing. There's action, there's drama, there's the will they, won't they again relationship with Barbara Gordon. There's a flashback to when he was a kid, being Bruce Wayne's ward. There's a lot of stuff crammed into this issue that makes for like a really excellent book. Great jumping on point. I highly recommend this for everybody. It'll definitely bring a tear to your eye. I'll just say that. A lot of fun. So that's my book of the week. And this has been Behind the Counter. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please gently press that like button. You don't have to be too aggressive with it. You can also gently press that subscribe button, which is probably what I meant initially. So do that. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your mama. I'm here every week. You can find me at BTC Rich X on YouTube. That's this channel. You can find me at BTC Rich on Twitter. And come and check some stuff out, man. We'll be back next week with another interview, and we'll keep doing these interviews every week. They're a lot of fun. We're getting the ball rolling. Got a few surprises lined up and a couple of great guests. So feel free to jump in the comments. Let's talk comics. What are you guys reading? Feel free to tweet me, message me on here. I'm all ears, and I'll see you next week. Later.